Hello and welcome to the Things I See podcast, episode 1. I'm your host, Clarity Ray, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this very special, very first episode. I don't have a guest on for today, but I am going to be your guide for this episode on how to see energy a little better. You see, the point of this podcast is to discuss supernatural or metaphysical occurrences that people I know have gone through, and me especially. I've been doing metaphysical woo-woo work for a few years now, and it's most certainly gotten to the point where every single day is magic. And I want to do my best to help others create that same every day. You know, there's energy all around us that makes the world make a whole lot of sense. And getting in tune with that makes it make more sense, not just the world, but gets us in tune with ourselves, our own energy. So let's get it started. I am going to guide you through a meditation, and the purpose for this meditation is to kind of get an idea of what senses of yours are strongest. So this is specifically when applied to energy, right? How we can visualize ourselves, how we can visualize the world around us, how we visualize others, getting in contact with how we see the world and ourselves and clearing the gap to make it nice and connected. So, this guided meditation is going to be focused at our root and not our perennial root, which would be at the bottom of our torso. We're going to be focusing all of our energy to the bottoms of our feet. It'll likely help if your feet are flat on the floor, but that's not a requirement. And if you're not tuning in for the meditation, you can feel free to just listen and see if you happen to pick anything up on the side. So, to start, we grab the energy at the very top of our head with our crown. We want to slowly but surely guide this energy down the front of our body. It'll pass down our third eye, pulling energy from it to carry further past our nose, past our mouth. Step further down our throat. This energy, this awareness we're pulling down enters the chest space. It passes by the heart, by the liver, by the lungs. And as it keeps moving down, we feel it cross our solar plexus, right where our diaphragm is. Allowing this energy to move down more and more. We feel it hit our abdomen, our navel. And by the time it's about to reach our sacral, we want to imagine this energy going up, back up towards the center of our legs. It'll wind up around our hips. And as we gather that awareness and that attention around our hips, we feel the energy. We send them down the front channel on the leg, just right on the top. And as this energy is moving down our legs, we want, with intent, to put ourselves in it, all of our energy, all of our awareness. What we're trying to see, feel, or sense here is a sense of where we are based on our root energy. It goes down past our ankles to our feet, and as that energy touches the floor, I want you to imagine yourself in a new place known as the rooted place. This place is a visual representation of how rooted we are. First thing I want you to look for is not a look, but a feel. Feel whatever earth it feels like you're standing on. A few common surfaces are sand, stone, dirt, maybe in a riverbed. Feel the sensation below your feet, and as you get in touch with that root sensation, it's time to kick in the other senses or see if any of them are more active than the rest. You can see, looking down or looking out and around you, where you are. You might be in a meadow, you might be in a river, you might be in a desert. If you happen to get a visual, look for the plants around you if there are any. Look for the nature. And for those who hear better, listen for the wind. Maybe you can even physically feel the wind against your skin in this place. Listen for the plants as the wind might make them rustle, or listen to the silence in the area. You might be able to pick up a smell or two, whether it's from flowers, maybe it's dry out, maybe it's humid. Gathering all of these senses in our rooted place. After we've soaked up our surroundings, gotten in touch with this rooted place, it is now time to take in what we've observed and leave. We feel the energy of our feet pressing against this rooted place, and we want to send that energy back up through our body. It travels up through our feet, across our ankles, across our calves, across our knees, and across our thighs. And as it goes up our thighs, finds its way back into the cycle of energy through our body, right at the seat of the tailbone, the bottom of the spine. This energy gets cycled back through your body with new information, new understandings of the senses, and a self ready to continue forward. And to help you fully come back to, I will count from the numbers of 0 to 5, with each number pulling us more and more into our energy, into our surroundings, and back into our world. Starting with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, eyes open, and 5, wide awake. So, that is a meditation that I originally found through studying my own energy. It's one I like to guide others through to get them in touch because it has the ability to touch so many senses. The one it kind of lacks on would be taste. But it really gets people in touch with what their starting point is, with energy acuity. The cool thing about energy is that it's the same for everyone, but because our brains are so built to render things out, the only way to process the same energy that exists is to create a system in which your brain is comfy seeing it. A lot of people see energy in different ways, but it is the same energy just appearing through a different perspective. So it's important to know what senses you work with best so you can develop your own system on understanding energy. I happen to be very blessed and very lucky to work with the sense of sight very strongly. Not everyone is able to get to the point of open-eyed visuals, but when it comes to closed-eyed visuals, you can oftentimes channel, feel, and see, if not the same, even more than you can with open eyes. A big thing I'm huge about is that everyone can develop a way to interpret and understand energy. It might not be the perfect in-person visual way, but there is a way, and that connection is incredibly important to becoming in tune with the world and why things happen the way they do. So, to get started on how to develop, with that meditation, pick the sense that you most identified with. And there is a chance that you didn't really identify with a sense. Maybe you went into meditation and didn't get the outcome you were looking for. And that is absolutely okay. The level of sensory to see energy is difficult to build out of nothing, because either the energy finds you or you have to find it. And not knowing what you're finding is much more difficult than something finding its way to you. But it is doable. It's just about knowing where to look in yourself, out in the world, or just in your own mind. So, through the 6 senses, 6 being feeling, we have sight, hearing, physical touch, taste, smell, and our emotional feeling, that intuitive trigger where we can tell there's an emotion, but the key to understanding emotion as a sense is to be able to detach healthily from emotions. It goes along with the saying, you are not your emotions, you are you experiencing your emotions. Emotions become a lot less personal and about us, and more so, if anything, messages from our surroundings. It's our body communicating with us rather than engorging us, as it sometimes feels it can. So out of those 6 senses that we did include in that meditation, I didn't include taste in it, but out of those, get a feel for which one you felt strongest. If you happen to see something, sight is already up there, because a lot of people don't start with any visual acuity. Some people don't have visual skills at all. So having the ability to channel any visuals is a very, very big deal, and one that can absolutely be worked on and refined. If you happen to feel the touch, I'm very lucky where I happen to feel touch almost as equally as I do visually. I can feel pain that other people are experiencing. I can feel discomfort in people's bodies, and during that meditation, I can feel my feet as they kind of grip into the dirt, the ground below me in that meditation. With hearing is a super common one where you may not be able to see or feel what's going on, but you can pick up the surroundings, the plants that are moving by, the sound of wind. You might be able to feel and hear the same things. And that's one of the important things, is all of these senses work in harmony more often than not. But still important to pick which one is strongest. And then the last sense in that meditation was smell. Some people can entirely work just off of smell. There's a certain way sense can be triggered because of energy that no other sense can really compare to. And while it might not be as colorful or sense-provoking as some others, it might be your access to seeing energy even better. So pick whichever sense you feel most comfy in, whichever one you felt applied itself most during that meditation. That is what we want to work on. First and foremost, that sense. That sense will open up our other senses just through working on it. So, sense is applied through time, space, and mind. Time being the things outside of ourselves, space being the space that surrounds us, our perspective, and mind being what's inside. The cool thing about energy is it exists in all 3 of those places. And in all 3 of those places, we can interpret, manipulate, or understand them based on getting to know them. So let's start with refining sight. It's weird to refine sight with energy because it takes a lot of trust that you're seeing what you're actually seeing, especially in a culture that can oftentimes make people feel crazy for seeing things. It couldn't be more common and normal. I've met so many people that I'm likely the only person they've told that they've seen things, you know? I create the space where it's like, hey, I do too. And before you know it, a lot of people have those interactions with energy. It's just a bit scary to bring them up. And with simple situations like that, where they see something and decide not to look into it, their brain puts up protections saying, oh, less sight. We need to see less of that. We don't want that. But it's important to understand where that comes from. It comes from a single belief within us that we can change. And that belief is that there's a chance we're crazy, right? There's almost a sense of shame in possibly seeing something more than what other people see. But a good way to battle that belief is just understanding that's already the way it is. Our conscious brains already delete and distort everything we see in order for us to match our own beliefs. You know, we already all see different things, and the only thing you can do is have extra faith in what you're seeing. Be extra okay and shameless about what you experience. Happens a lot with hearing too. Hearing is also associated with that going insane. Oh, I hear voices. I've heard plenty of voices, but being able to put a location, a time, and a person to it, being able to put defining details, isn't the difference of whether one is crazy or not. It's just the difference of whether you feel like you are. So, to develop sight, aside from first off removing our protections on our senses, you know, being willing to see things a little beyond, the first step is to practice. When it comes to closing your eyes, it's not just about being able to see what you're guided to or what your brain shows you, but being able to choose what you're seeing. My first experiment when I was 16 with this was fine-tuning the visual of an apple in my mind. I would be able to pull up almost like a red blob, but it was too morphy. It was a never-ending movement around it that made it impossible to keep a stable apple. But I was like, no, I can figure this out. I want to be able to see a stable picture in my mind. So from that chaotic visual, or for some people, it's the lack of visual, you bring that same intent, that same focus. It's a stabilizing effect of your brain's already wanting to make that image. It just needs to know how to pull things together to do it. And that takes practice. So you start with this apple. And the key things I like about the apple, it's not a simple shape. It has little bumps on the top and bottom. It has a shine. It has patterned skin. It has a stem that can be any size you please. And my favorite thing was being able to start turning the apple. You get to the point where you can identify all of these different aspects of how you can see this apple in space. Then you can move it around space. And it took around a year of practicing this, but before I knew it, I was able to develop a background to this apple. So it's an apple floating like a few feet above the sidewalk in a city environment. And it's through those steps that my visual abilities really kicked off. It's that training of just starting bit by bit. What is something we can imagine? And, you know, maybe even starting with a circle or a triangle, something super easy, but adding tiny definitions, details, differences to each of those shapes, cutting off the corners, rounding them out, or squaring them. There's a ton of things you can do. And by squaring, my brain went to like adding a corner, you know, adding an extra corner, get creative. And that is the steps to fine-tuning how you can see. Now, to go from visualizing what you want in your brain to visualizing energy, my favorite way to help others bridge that gap is through internal alchemy. before trying to see things in other people or the world outside of you, or see how time can manifest, the most important thing is to see your insides. See what the world is by seeing you, because the world is just a reflection. And the best way to study that reflection is first within you, not within the reflection. So, I like to guide people through something called the microcosmic orbit. It is essentially the start of that previous meditation I did, except it starts at the spine rather than the crown. You send energy up your spine, and then you pull it from the crown down the front of your body. And being able to do this is so important because you can feel energy with every sense. You can teach anyone this microcosmic orbit of feel how energy pools at the bottom of your hips, and then feel how it rises up your spine. And the wonderful thing is it doesn't move at the pace you want it to move. As you follow the energy, as it moves up your spine, it moves at a very specific, slow pace. And we just have to follow it. It's that command of going slower, being more mindful with the senses, and then also knowing when you're passing by organs, energy centers, why some channels feel, look, hear a certain way. I can most certainly hear people's energy centers sometimes. Sometimes it's like a vibration, but sometimes it's almost like a held back scream. I've heard a lot of funny noises come from people's energy centers. And that's the amazing thing, is all of these energy centers, they've been interpreted in hundreds of different ways in human history, but it's all the same energy, just under different perception. So being able to grapple on to the energy within your own body, guide it up the spine from the bottom of your torso, and feel each energy center, whether it's through sight, through what you can hear, through what you can feel, through what you can touch, through what the energy feels like as it passes through your body. All of that allows you to see energy outside of yourself. It's all just getting, befriending it per se, you know? And that's the cool thing. I've developed my own energy system, and I could right now teach you it, like teach you how to feel the things in each center, but the wonderful thing is our subconscious already has some form of system built into it to understand energy. It just has to be open to understanding it. You know, removing that shame I discussed earlier, diving deeper into our best sense, the sense of ours that works the best. With that, going forward, we can start somewhere. And that start somewhere goes into, now the energy is finding us. Into, now I can see a lot of energy. I can feel it all. It really is all a matter of starting somewhere with some baby step. When it comes to hearing, this one was actually quite a difficult one for me to develop. I always had problems when it comes to sound on a sensory issue. It was always uncomfortable, typically too much. I'm very picky about music quality and how I'm listening to it. But to develop hearing, a lot of it takes learning silence, right? Just as with physical feeling, to fine-tune that experience, you want to meditate. You want to kind of absolve from your presence in your body so you can feel things more specifically in it, rather than the whole body all at once, like a specific area. With hearing, it's tough for a lot of people to quiet their mind in order to listen, but hearing has been one of the most important senses I could develop energetically. I find myself being able to go out onto a mountaintop and talk to the nature spirit of that mountain. I find myself being able to talk with other people's guides, and being able to hear them is both amazing but also, it's a little confusing. Sometimes you don't always know who to place that sound to. And again, pulling out that shame and then trying to hear things. Sounds crazy, I know, to say try to hear things. But, if you're encountered with what you think might be a spirit, they're absolutely everywhere. If you happen to be in a cemetery and you get pulled towards a certain random grave, then why not go and see if you can hear something? It's interesting how much energy responds to our will and intent, especially when most of the time we put protections on our senses. We try to dull them down in many ways. It's so important to just have the intent. I know that sounds maybe a little silly for people who haven't had energy interactions, but one of the biggest first steps is to be willing to have energy interactions. Put it out there. Say it out loud to the universe. Be like, hey, I don't want to be closed off to this. I want to open up my sensitivity, right? Insensitivity is very protecting. It's very grounding. Keeps us in a good place, but sometimes it keeps us there. Insensitivity has its purpose, but sensitivity does too. It's the essence for connection. So with hearing and developing that as a sense, it also comes physically, not just, practicing energetically and being open, but the physical side of it is hearing separate noises in a space, trying to hear just that independent singular noise, right? If there's a lot going on, it's not always about how well you can focus on one thing, but also how well can you tune out the others to increase that focus. It's rather rewarding on all levels. It's like a mental workout rather than just helping you see energy. It's absolutely amazing to just control your hearing. It's a sense of feeling in control of how you process the world that helps you discover more of the world, helps you realize how much of it you might have been missing in that dulling of the senses. When it comes to refining physical touch, this one does change very heavily person to person. The best way to develop physical energy understanding, physical acuity, is to understand where our body holds emotions. Because our body holds both actively felt emotions and trauma, whether it's in the organs or in the muscles or in the energy that impacts those things. Being able to feel in our body what is going on and why, if it is emotional or if it is purely physical, is the first step into being able to feel other people, And some people already have that just by birth. Some people will look at someone tearing up and they'll have to start tearing up too. It's just that instant sympathetic response. But to really develop it, getting the physical space to an understanding of not just your own body, but then with the world. This is my favorite. Being able to understand space by being aware of where you are in it at every moment. So I'm a dancer, and I can, of course, suggest everyone dance, but one of the biggest reasons is where your body is at every moment. And not in a bad way. It's not out of a hypersensory I can't leave it way. It's I like consuming the space in my body because I know how much space I'm consuming. Especially with spatial understanding, spatial awareness, not just within you, but how that extends beyond you, right? How you can project yourself into the future physically, or understand where others will be in the future physically. It all starts with understanding you and understanding where your place is in the space around you. And, physical also goes into the microcosmic orbit I talked about earlier. Being able to physically feel the energy pass through your body gets you in tune with how it does it when you're not looking for it. The microcosmic orbit is cool as a meditation, but the goal is to just know that energy is moving that way at all points, because it is. Knowing what we can do with it, if we have enough or if we don't, being in touch that deeply with ourselves. Taste and smell are fun senses to cover here when it comes to developing acuity, because these are heavy pleasure senses. You know, they play their role in survival, of course. They're right up there with the other senses. But taste is an easy one, of course. You know, I like to do it with spices. You know, being able to tell what spices are in a certain food, especially when they combine and maybe create mixed scents. Being able to separate two tastes or two smells is an incredibly fun exercise, but on top of that helps your other senses as well. I have yet to apply taste and smell super intuitively. Smell definitely has an intuitive aspect. You can smell certain energies 100%, but a lot of these I would say to practice just because it's fun to practice. It gives you an understanding of taste, flavor, range, spectrum, just the entire gradient of how things can appear. You know, energy appears as a spectrum of different interacting energy, and taste and smell are just our senses picking up fine differences in a similar way. With smell, I like to do it across space specifically. I'll look at an orange that's a few feet away from me, and where I'm normally not smelling anything, I try to pick up that smell by focusing on it. Pick it out of the air as it has wafted through at some point, even if it's just a few tiny bits of smell from that orange. If they're in the air, the goal is to get those bits and separate it from the rest of the room smell. Get just that input out of it. Get it super specific. So I have gone through most of the senses that one needs to connect to for energetic ability, you know, and of course, emotional feeling, being empathy, is a very common understanding of energy. You know, being able to feel others, being able to understand the way energy works around you based on how you feel. But the important thing about that is developing other senses with the emotional feeling. Emotions are oftentimes our body's reaction to an outside stimulus, and without the ability to detect those outside stimuli, it can lead to the emotional feeling bouncing back at us, right? Over empathy. For example, if you've ever been around someone paranoid, mass hysteria is a very effective thing energetically because paranoia is energetically infectious. But the thing is, people don't see it as an outer energy. As soon as their body feels that paranoid energy from someone else, their conscious brain, in an attempt to protect itself, makes up a reason to be paranoid. And with that instant come to of making up a reason to be paranoid or making up a reason to be angry, we completely overlook the fact that it might have not been our emotion. It was an emotion out in the room that made us feel a way, right? So it's a tough thing to rely on energetically because it doesn't give you the information always of how that emotion came to. I find that through sight, hearing, physical, sensory, and other things, empathy becomes significantly easier. It's much less about how we feel and much more about how did that feeling get to us? Why is it in the room? Where is it going? And how do we work with it? You know, separate from ourselves. So with all of those senses covered, including empathy, I'm going to talk about the energetic learning curve. So this is an experience many people get, It's always compared to the term awakening. It's when you start looking into energy and then all of a sudden it feels like a spike. Feels like you're high, manic, off of whatever you're finding. Your spirit itself is grappling onto every energetic concept it comes across. And the learning curve with energy is much less about what we are able to learn and much more about what are we willing to let go of, right? It's when we remove these ceilings, these limiters. It's when energy convinces us of something different in life or persuades us that all of a sudden we have lost a limiter and we just find everything coming to us. We can start seeing energy on a level we couldn't normally. We start hearing spirits, and it feels like it's all happening so fast, but as things go up, they also must come down. The idea of it going up so fast isn't for us to stay up for forever. It's the idea of we can get this information by being so energetically high, and then we can go back down and bring it with us. But for a lot of people, it manifests in burnout. It manifests in losing the self. We get so caught up in that upwards energy of spirit, of knowing who we are, that we forget that we are supposed to come back down. Spirituality gets so exciting, but when it's about chasing the awakening, you're going to get absolutely slammed in your senses. You're going to learn all of these skills, but then you're going to need time to ground and implement them. And implementing is always the hard part, and you have to learn implementation and grounding. The energy is removing the limiter. The grounding is putting on the right limiters, So one of the biggest things is that through all of these senses and through all of these energetic experiences, whether it's looking in ourselves or outside ourselves, you're going to get hit with that spiritual high of, whoa, I can suddenly pick this up. And then you're going to hit that spiritual low. But it's not per se a spiritual low. It's an energetic low. And it's spirit just connecting to the earth again. Implementing, grounding, becoming. That's the tough part. If we want to go down this path of understanding, seeing, smelling, touching energy, seeing it within ourselves and within others, it's all going to come at once, and then it's all going to go, and then it's all going to come again, and then it's all going to go. There isn't an actual stable point of having metaphysical ability. Like, to a baseline, my intuition has a set amount it's always willing to do. But there's some days where even with eyes closed, I don't see the things I've seen. I don't hear the things I've heard. I don't feel and touch the things I've felt and touched the same way. But that doesn't mean I'm energetically out. It doesn't mean that I've lost the ability. It only means that there's another time for that ability. I take with me the lessons of what I've seen, what I've guided others through, and what I've healed in myself and others, and I ground with it. A lot of people will hit a low the first few times they get into energy, whether they got into a psychotic episode or they had a major health condition that put them on this path where they have this intense recovery process to it. The psychosis, the almost death, that's the energetically too much. We always need to bring what we learn back with us to earth. So, just to kind of give a quick recap over the guide on how to see energy. First, identify what sense you work best with. What sense comes up in your mind when you close your eyes? What can you smell without a smell, taste without a taste, see, hear, or touch without actually doing any of those things? And then developing the senses. We're using concepts like time, space, and mind. We're either working on the energy in us, or we're looking at the energy outside of us, or maybe the energy exists in neither, and we're just perceiving how it moves across space, whichever given space, at any given time. Developing these senses starts with the physical. You gotta work on those physical senses. It sounds weird to some people to work on sight, especially for how common bad eyesight is, but visual exercises are huge. Being out and getting enough sunlight. Hearing, focusing, and learning how to hear better. Learning how to clear more space for words that enter your head, so they're not combating ever with words in your head already. Developing physical senses, the emotional feeling. It's all about just getting more in touch with your body and what your body is telling your brain. Because our body feels the energy. Our brain just doesn't see it yet. So getting our brain to be willing to understand what it's feeling, what it already knows through the senses, is how we develop sensory acuity. And then, of course, as I was talking before, just to finish it off, these things ebb and flow. There will be moments where you just start doing spiritual work and it just takes off. It just booms. Before you know it, everything's happening, and then you're going to hit that low. Treat yourself kindly for the lows. Treat yourself with love. Treat yourself with patience, and understand that no matter how harsh the energy is, it's always there. It's up to you to sense it or learn how to not sense it. Learn how to balance it in your life. And always know it's not a curse and a blessing. It is just a blessing. It's just a blessing that takes work. So, if this is the path you want to take, if you want to get in tune with yourself and with the energy that flows around you, this is the path. There will definitely be more episodes on this in the future, featuring other people and their journeys on developing sensory. This isn't 100% my copy-paste journey. This is formed off of a collection of how I've seen people develop this. But definitely stick around for more episodes on developing energy. A lot of it is, that ebb and flow process of slowly moving up. But thank you for watching this first episode. I hope you enjoyed it very much. I hope that meditation found you well, and I hope that you'll be able to be more in tune with your senses, with the world around you, and the energy that guides us all. Blessings and peace. Have a good week.